desk.
Okay, this amendment is number 6, and the clerk will designate the amendment. The staff will distribute that amendment, and we'll give a few seconds and let you proceed. Go ahead, clerk.
Amendment number 6 on law enforcement offered by Mr. Kildee.
My friend from Michigan, 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this markup and for hearing this amendment. One of the most concerning aspects of the budget that we have before us, to me, is that it effectively will defund federal commitment to law enforcement, making communities across America less safe. One of our most important jobs in Congress and in all of government is to make sure that law enforcement has the tools that it needs in order to ensure something as fundamental as public safety. Public safety for the constituents that I represent in mid-Michigan. This includes support for local law enforcement to help them fight crime and ultimately make those neighborhoods safe. And look, we should all agree, and I think to a great extent we do, that we need to invest in local law enforcement. That's why I'm so puzzled by the provisions included in this budget. We need to support the law enforcement so they can hire police officers, get dangerous people off the streets, combat crime. And again, this proposed budget would result in deep cuts to our law enforcement programs, not just to federal law enforcement, but also to programs that support those local police departments, those law enforcement officers all across the country. It also includes cuts to the Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance, which has supported programs, I can say for myself, in my own community to reduce gun violence and community violence in Flint, Michigan, my hometown, in Saginaw, a community just up the road. Republicans are also proposing to cut the Burn Justice Grants program, a vital source of funding for small local police departments. And the irony, of course, is, as we all know, for years we've heard Republicans accusing Democrats of this very same thing. And I will admit, occasionally I have to oppose some few members of my own party on this subject, but I support local law enforcement, and that's why I'm offering this amendment. I don't support defunding local law enforcement, but look, that's what this budget proposal does. This would put Congress on a path to less funding being made available to local law enforcement, which translates to Michigan communities and communities all across the country being less safe. And that's why I propose this amendment, to simply do this one thing. And I ask you to join me in this, to just restore the cuts to local police departments that make our communities safe. I do hope that all of us can stand together on this, Republicans and Democrats, to vote yes on this amendment to responsibly continue to fund local police departments that help us fight crime. And with that, I reserve.
I thank the gentleman from Michigan, and now would like to ask if there are any members who would like to claim time in opposition to the amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McClintock from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, understanding the different languages that Republicans and Democrats speak is very important at times like this. For example, when Democrats talk about infrastructure, they mean subsidies for wealthy EV buyers and mass transit. When Republicans talk infrastructure, we mean dams, roads, and bridges. And likewise, when Democrats talk law enforcement, they mean giving grants to liberal cities that have slashed their own police budgets and grants for such failed policies as dispute resolution, de-escalation, free drug paraphernalia, social justice grants. When Republicans talk law enforcement, we mean, well, law enforcement. Sir Robert Peel, the father of modern policing, made very clear that law enforcement is a uniquely community institution. Each population is different, and effective policing recognizes this. Police are an extension of the community itself and need to be administered locally and accountable locally. The problem is that the Democratic cities have decimated their local law enforcement agencies, and they're now suffering the consequences. They were cheered on by the Democrats here, and I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an RSC paper entitled Looking Back, Democrats Push to Defund the Police, which documents that. and the FY 2024 House Judiciary Committee views and estimates on how they have slashed their police budgets in the cities that they control. Facts are stubborn things. What they've discovered is that their own constituents are now the victims of an unprecedented crime wave, and they're starting to notice. So now the Democrats want to take money from the communities that have fully funded their police departments to give to those who have slashed their police departments, no doubt with the tangle of red tape specifying how the Democrats want that money spent, and it won't be on law enforcement. Meanwhile, they've got no problems with opening the southern border and admitting, so far in this administration, 4.3 million illegal aliens, along with the criminal gangs, the international cartels, the human and drug trafficking, including a flood of fentanyl. And of course, border security, which is a federal responsibility, is the last thing that the Democrats will fund. And this will continue as long as the Democrats control our immigration policy and the police departments of our major cities. And I now yield to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Good.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock. Mr. Chairman, the Democrats and the Biden administration have willfully, purposefully facilitated the invasion taking place at our southern border over the past 2 years. And all Americans are now suffering and paying the price of the dereliction of duty demonstrated by President Biden, Secretary Mayorkas, and Democrats in Congress. Since President Biden took over, Customs and Border Patrol has encountered nearly 6 million illegal aliens at the southwest border, and even worse, reports that over 1.5 million known, not counting the unknown, known gotaways have evaded U.S. Border Patrol. According to a study by FAIR, this dereliction of duty is costing Americans, taxpayers, over $150 billion annually, and that's only going to go up under these Democrat policies and those running this administration. And Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a study from the Federation for American Immigration Reform titled "The Fiscal Burden of Illegal Immigration on United States Taxpayers" into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rising crime in Democrat-run cities has caused Democrats to suddenly begin to rethink their efforts, their well-publicized efforts to defund police. Even the mayor of New York City recently called for action to be taken to curb rising crime as a result of the invasion at our southern border. I wonder what he thinks of those who actually live at the southern border, those border states. I call on my Democrat colleagues to work with Republicans to secure our borders, stem the flow of illicit drugs like the chemical weapon fentanyl, and secure domestic peace and tranquility by funding local police, prosecuting criminals, and ending no-cash bail. But this amendment would simply throw money at the problem and fail to truly solve the issues caused by this Biden administration and these individuals who run our blue cities, these Democrat individuals who run our big cities. So I recommend a no vote on this amendment, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman from Virginia, who's yielded time, and now yield 1 minute for rebuttal to my friend from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while I comprehend and appreciate the arguments that have been made, I would have preferred my amendment to be debated. My amendment is simple: continue to fund support for local police agencies. That's what it does. I mean, obviously we have to have a debate about immigration policy and border security, for sure. I agree. This amendment is about supporting local police. And so while my friend, Mr. McClintock, made the point that we all use different language, the language of this budget proposal is in its numbers. And your numbers put fewer police on the street, not just in democratically led cities, but in Republican or nonpartisan led cities. The support that I've provided local law enforcement goes to cities like Linden, Michigan. If you know anything about it, you know it's not a Democratic-led city. Or Fenton, Michigan. If you knew anything about it, you know that that's not a Democratic-led city. But they're my constituents, and I've been delivering help for their police departments. And you're making it more difficult for me to do that if your budget succeeds. And I can't accept that, and you should not either. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman from Michigan. The question's on agreeing to the amendment offered by Mr. Kildee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Yes, sir. Roll call votes requested pursuant to the bipartisan unanimous consent agreement. We will postpone the recorded vote until later in the markup. Are there any other amendments